when you first read a book and it is just awesome, and then for some reason or another you go back and reread it, and upon rereading it, you just shake your head like, what? Someone swapped books with me. This was not what I read before. Yeah, welcome to the Chemical Garden Trilogy. Hello, my bookworms! Today's review is on my marathoning of the Chemical Garden Trilogy. Woo! I would seem so much more excited if this was better. As you guys know, I have already read Wither, and I had read Fever, and the last one I needed to complete was Sever. I started reading these books back when Fever was released. So Wither was already paperback, Fever had just been released. I bought it, read them, loved them. Then Sever was supposed to come out, and Sever took forever to come out, so time passed, and I had already decided I would need to reread these before I read Sever. It was kind of like an Infernal Devices. You know, I read Clockwork Angel, Clockwork Prince, and when Clockwork Princess finally came out, I was able to reread those books. But unlike the Chemical Garden Trilogy, I enjoyed the Infernal Device reread. I did not give you guys a quick synopsis of the Chemical Garden Trilogy in my last post because why? It's a trilogy. This is a marathon. To read the back panels from all three books would kind of just ruin some people's experience. And I'm not going to tell you guys how Sever ends. I'm not going to tell you really much of anything about Sever, although I probably end up with from my ramblings, but I will attempt to my best not to, and if I catch myself while I'm editing, I will put up a little spoiler thing so everybody knows. The Chemical Garden Trilogy. This is a dystopian future of America. Basically, the human race has cured itself from ailments such as cancer and the flu and things like that, so we had a strong generation of people who lived well into their hundreds, and then once as they reproduced, something terrible has happened. The children of that generation are now diseased, and not at first. Technically, they're alive, they're healthy as children, they never get sick. But when a female turns 20 and a male hits the age of 25, they rot from the inside out and die. That is the coolest premise to a book I have read for a dystopian future in a long time. The fact that as humans, we are constantly trying to cure these ailments that we actually end up ruining our civilization and our next few generations is just compelling. And the fact that the people, they rot from the inside out, they know exactly when they're gonna die is just horrendous, and you're just like, oh, this is so cool! It's a great idea. It was just executed so poorly that I am, quite frankly, annoyed. Now, the first time I read Wither and I read Fever, I enjoyed them. I read them in like 2 days, which is the same case here. They're quick little reads. They're not hard. The second time around, however, I think I started picking up on a few more things, and I think I just became more and more agitated as these books went on. Initially, there was a lot of love-hate about these books. People love them, people hate them. I'm in the middle ground at the moment. I cannot really say that I love them. I cannot say that I hate them because there is a certain place in my heart for these books. However, there's also a certain place in a garbage can for these books. It's one of the, like, there are times you're reading it and you're just like so into it, and then there's other times you're sitting there like, I hate you. I hate you, Lauren DeStefano. What the hell are you writing? What are you doing? There's that situation going on. So to get kind of a bit more into the premises of these books, you have the main character, Rhine. And, she's about 16 years old, and she has two different colored eyes. She's got a brown one and a blue one. I don't know if those are the right sides that they're on. It was said, I don't remember. She also has a twin brother who, like her, brown eye, blue eye. Not, again, sure. In the beginning of the book, she's in this van with all these other girls. She already knows what is happening. Every single girl in that van knows what is happening. They have been gathered. Now, this is another cool premise of the book, the gathering. Basically, there's a van or multiple vans that drive around town, picking girls out of the streets, out of their beds, wherever they can find them, and putting them in this van and selling them off. There are 3 things that can happen to are gathered. You are sold as a prostitute, you are sold as a wife, and if none of those two things happen, you are killed and thrown off to the side of the street to rot. Rhine knows all of this. She's already assuming what is happening is not going to be good. Once she's pulled out of the van, all the girls are lined up, and this guy with gold teeth is like walking around and picks up 3 girls, and as we all can suspect, Rhine is one of them. Rhine is forced into a marriage with this man named Lyndon Ashby, and she is not happy about it. She is just not having it, and she is forced into it. In the beginning, you really feel for her because you really think Lyndon Ashby is this horrible man, but you find out that his wife, his current wife, the woman he's in love with, has reached the age of 20 and is dying, and he is doing everything in his power to keep her alive, and they never had a child, and he wants to carry out his family name, so on and so forth. So he has 3 wives that his father actually convinced him to go and find, and it's really horrible because the rest of the girls that were not picked were shot and killed. The other 2 wives, one is named Jenna, and she is older than Rhine. Then you have Cecilia, and she is a lot younger. I mean, she is like 14 years old. Unlike Jenna and Rhine, she is more eager to please Lyndon. She wants to be this wife, whereas Jenna is just kind of a recluse. She doesn't want anything to do with anybody. And Rhine is obsessed with the idea of escaping, even though she knows she cannot escape. Rhine ends up meeting an attendant. His name is Gabriel, and they kind of hit it off, although she's very obsessed with finding her brother because she's afraid her brother cannot function without her, but she's the weaker of the 2. It's very confusing. Cecilia is the first one to fall pregnant, and she's only 14 years old, which is kind of disturbing a little bit. The fact that Lyndon Ashby is like 20 years old and sleeping with a 14-year-old is just creepy. And, Rhine refuses to sleep with him, and Jenna is just like, oh, if it makes you leave me alone. Which is how everyone is. They're in Florida, so of course a hurricane comes through Florida, and Rhine seeks her opportunity to run away. She doesn't make it very far. She gets knocked unconscious. The father of Lyndon Ashby, Vaughn, he is the evil man in this book. Let me tell you, after she kind of almost escapes and is knocked unconscious, he's taking care of her. He's a doctor, but he threatens her in that same sense of, if you try to run away again, I'm gonna kill you. So she's kind of lucid, and she doesn't truly believe it, but she knows that Vaughn has Lyndon's first wife, Rose, down in the basement being dissected, and she's very scared of Vaughn, and you can feel that, you can. Anyways, to cut this one short, in the end, Rhine ends up escaping with Gabriel, and then in the second book, it leads off with them, trying to run away, and then they get pulled into a prostitution plant. This series is very surrounded by the element of sex. And I'm not a prude, I have nothing against that, but just the fact of how much it was in there was a bit uncomfortable. Just a bit. For example, they are thrown into the prostitution plant. Although Rhine isn't shared out like a prostitute, she is basically just a symbol of what men can't have. And she gets to make out with Gabriel. But in the same token, she's making out with Gabriel, she's thinking of Lyndon and then thinking of her brother. And that would have been a mood killer alone. You don't think about your brother while you're doing that. That's nasty. So they end up escaping the prostitution plant. They seek help from a family. Then the man, the husband of this wife who let them in their home, attacks Rhine and tries to have sex with her. So you can kind of see where I'm getting at. Everything is surrounded by that notion in these first 2 books. But it's not remotely mentioned in Sever, which is probably why I enjoyed Sever a bit more. At the end of Fever, Vaughn finds Rhine and takes her back to Florida and basically holds her hostage in the basement and is running tests on her. Sever is a completely different aspect to the entire Chemical Garden trilogy. It's kind of like Lauren DeStefano got her shit together and was like, yes, I know what to do. Rhine no longer escapes. Lyndon lets her leave, and he takes her to his uncle's house where they kind of team up almost against Vaughn. And, Lyndon helps her go and find her brother, and they find her brother who's a complete whack job now. And it's just, that one was compelling. I liked that one. That one had a lot of action in it, and it was very, you were pulled into it. I'm not telling you guys how it ends. If you're interested, read it, find out. I would like to say you have to read the other 2 to even understand Sever, but that is not the case. You might just be a little bit confused about characters, but Rhine's the main character. Her brother's in there, and I forgot his name. And then you have Gabriel the attendant, who really is not in this book, and Lyndon Ashby, who's the husband with 3 wives. Vaughn's the evil guy, who's Lyndon's father. Yeah. On to what I liked and what I didn't like, and we're gonna do what I didn't like, because there are a lot of things. With the first 2 books, I wanted nothing more than to pull through those pages and just slap Rhine just so hard. Just so hard. I refer to Rhine as a pancake. Not because she's flat and boring as a character, but because she flip-flops. She is constantly obsessed with this thought of running away. And then she starts thinking about Lyndon, and she kind of gets pulled into this world that she could have whatever she wants. And she could have Lyndon, who will love her and take care of her, but she's still determined to escape. And then she meets Gabriel, and she starts to kind of fall for Gabriel, but then she's falling for Lyndon at the same time, and she cannot make up her mind what she wants. And then she just is like, I don't want either of you. I want my brother. Not in the sexual sense, but just, But then she ends up leaving with Gabriel, and while they're running away together, she's thinking about Lyndon and going back to Lyndon. And I hate her as a character. I just hated her in those first 2 books. I wanted to, just roundhouse kick her in the face. I probably would have if she was real. She was my biggest issue, was the mere fact she could never make up her mind, and when she did, it was too late. It was always a little bit too late to make up her mind. Another thing is the writing style with this book. There's a lot of repeated phrases. And, Lauren DeStefano kind of does this thing like, Rhine has hectochromia, whatever that is. She has 1 blue eye, 1 brown eye. It makes her different. It makes her special. Okay, the first time that was mentioned, that's cool. Okay, I get it. And then it's mentioned again, and then you're like, I got it. And then she mentions it again. Like, no. You don't understand. Rhine, her eyes are special. She is the cure. And you're just like, I got it. Oh my God. And that continues throughout all 3 books, unfortunately. And you know what? That eyes have nothing to do with anything. But that was continuously mentioned. And I'm like, oh God, just stop it. So I said I don't like Rhine, but she is not my least favorite character. My least favorite character was Gabriel, the attendant. He was pointless. He was a wimp. Pansy, whatever you want to call him. He was pathetic as a character, and I do not understand why Rhine would want to run away with someone she would have to take care of. Why? I understand Gabriel was brought up in this. He was sold at a young age as an attendant, so he's never known what freedom was, and she wanted to show him what freedom was. There's a difference between showing someone what freedom is and having to take care of them to get to freedom. He was just pathetic. He couldn't do anything for himself. He couldn't protect himself. He couldn't protect Rhine. He couldn't do anything. God, so useless. So now the world of Chemical Garden. Okay. That was a bit strange, because in the first 2 books, I had this nagging thought in the back of my mind of, why is America the only thing that's left in the world? Because it is stated that there is nothing left. America is the last continent. And I'm just thinking to myself, why is America the only thing that's left when that's not even the biggest continent? Everything else has been eroded away from the waters and all of that, but not America? How does that make sense? In the 3rd book, that is explained, and that's not true. And, that was compelling, because that's what I was really wondering, and I'm so happy that was explained. I honestly am happy. I really did enjoy these books. I'm not gonna lie. Sever was my favorite. The first 2, I enjoyed them more the first time. I really did. The concept of the whole premise, the entire story, was brilliant. The last book, the way it was panned out, what happened to everybody, I loved that. And there were parts of it I was like, no! And you really do begin to get attached to even the worst of the characters. Like Vaughn, you get more of his background in Sever, and you get more of Lyndon's background in Sever, and you really feel for them, and you're just like, oh, I'm sorry I hated you so much, but you're still a bastard, Vaughn. You're still a bastard. The Chemical Gardens, it was a decent trilogy. It's a fast read. Sever was the longest one it took me to read. It was about 3 days. The other 2 took me 2 days to read. And just look at these covers. They're just so pretty. Just so pretty. To grade them individually, this book would be a B minus. This book would be a C. I hated this book. I just profoundly hated it. And then you have Sever, and I would give Sever an A. So we are very mixed on these books. As a whole, however, I would give this entire trilogy a B. I honestly have to, because granted, Sever is what saved this trilogy. It's not enough to give it an A. Fever just ruined everything for me. It really, really did. Now it's on to the next books I will be reading. My next book is Desolation by C.J. Sampson. If you guys remember, I thoroughly loved and enjoyed Revelation, and I went off and bought Desolation. I'm happy to say that you don't need to read this one before Revelations, although it was a Charter Lake series, but that's okay. It is 1537, a time of revolution that sees the greatest changes in England since 1066. Henry VIII has proclaimed himself supreme head of the church. The country is waking up to savage new laws, rigged trials, and the greatest network of informers it has ever seen. And under the orders of Thomas Cromwell, a team of commissioners is sent throughout the country to investigate the monasteries. There can only be one outcome: desolation. Okay, so it goes on for like 2 more paragraphs that I'm not gonna read for you guys, sorry. But yes, I'm so excited about Desolation because I really enjoyed Revelations, very much enjoyed it, so yeah! The Chemical Garden trilogy as a whole, it is a B. It is really worth a read, but once you hit Fever, push past it. It gets better, just push past it. Keep tuned for my review on Desolation. Do not forget to subscribe. All those awesome links are below also on Facebook, Twitter, Goodreads, the whole 9 yards. Until then, you guys, happy reading. Bye!